It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon in April, and we find ourselves at Casey Jones Village in Jackson. We've come back to enjoy another Hobo Gathering.
He left home to see the USA.
Casey Jones Village is an annual stop on the Hobos Trek. It's a time to gather and renew acquaintances.
Talk about the past, of course. Everyone's in to talk about the past. You talk about what you're going to do, because the future is very interesting to us. And just catch up on what you've been doing and what the other people have been doing and who they've talked to. It's the same thing anyone else does when they get together. Just talk about things that are of common interest. We have a language kind of our own. We have signs that we put in places, which is most people don't know about. One of the words is a bindle. Our bindle is our backpack, and our moniker is what we're called. No one uses their proper name. My name is Hobo Spike, but no one knows what my real name is. And I'm not ashamed of it, but we just don't use it. You don't ask, and that's just the way it is. You take people for face value, and you accept them for what they are. And their wealth means nothing to us. Their poverty means nothing to us. We live very much for the moment of now, and we get along pretty well.
Fish bones.
The Hobos accept people for who they are, and even if they don't all get along, they accept one another and they agree to disagree. And if they really don't get along and we're all in a hobo jungle, then they just keep their distance. But yet they're like family. And sometimes not all members of family get along. Okay, you stay on your side of the room and I'll stay on mine, kind of that attitude. But there's an acceptance for people and a love for people, a love for America, a love for nature, a love for God.
I was a working class hobo. I carried tools with me on that train, or carried my guitar and my instruments. I didn't collect food stamps, and I didn't collect welfare.
The hobo travels and will work, the tramp will travel but not work, and the bum won't travel or work. That's the way we view it.
He could make a mulligan stew. Find a railroad to Hobo out.
There's 2 or 3 stories that may have come around by the hobo. One of them is that people were looking for work back before the Depression, and they carried a hoe with them because they had their own tools, they could get a job. So they were hoe boys, and somehow that got evolved to being a hobo. That's one of the stories. And there's 2 or 3 other ones, but that's the one I think probably has more validity to it.
I like to take it as far back as maybe towards the time of the Civil War, where they had camps set up along the railroads, and soldiers were coming home to war-torn areas and nothing there. And if you were a veteran, in those days you would get first pick on the labor draws. If they needed powder monkeys, working explosives, gandy dancers on the rails, engineers, connies, conductors. There was some mention of this in historical books and everything at that time. It's called a Tourist Union 63 card. It goes celebrating the time of 1863, when the first hobo newsletters were posted and sent out amongst the railroad camps and stuff, telling other soldiers and other people where the good jobs were, where they're needing more hands and more labor and things of this nature. And I'm proud to still be a member of Tourist Union 63, 150 some odd years later,
I have a wanderlust. I want to see what's over the next hill, what's around the next curve. It's just a spirit that I want to find out. I just like to look at other things.
I think it's a sense of freedom, of not being tied down to one spot, perhaps. I was a modern-day hobo. There are many modern-day hobos. They don't even know they're hobos. I was one for 3 years. We're called rubber tramps, which means we travel by motorhome or vehicle, to get from one place to another, working our way across. My second husband and my little boy and I, for 3 years, did this. And someone asked us once if we were vagabonds.
I saw a couple times in the county jails for a night or two and stuff for misdemeanor railroad trespassing, but usually it was just a night or two and a kick out. They didn't want to keep you around and feed you. And sometimes if you just start scratching real hard and everything and sneeze, and most of the time the police didn't even want you in the back of the car, so they just leave you alone. That's an old trick I learned from an old king that rode during the Depression days.
I started in 1952, and it was completely different then than it is now. And 52 is much harder. to make a living. But now it's much harder to ride trains because the railroad bulls, the policemen, don't want us to do that. So we have to be clever and try to avoid them at all costs. And sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. But life is not pleasant. It's dirty, it's dangerous, and it's illegal. So I do not recommend anybody do that. If you want to ride a freight train, don't. Wait until you're 55 or 60, then do it if you want to. By that time you'll have better sense.
I guess I'm still a homeward bound soldier. I'm still a hobo.
We call it the westbound. That's another word that we use. When a person dies, we call that they catch the westbound. And sometimes we think that maybe they get on the tails of comets and ride it through the universe. That's what I want to do when I pass away.
Hoboing still.
That's right. Yeah. For eternity.